Without any further ado, I would love to welcome our food futurist, Mike Lee, back to the stage to set us up for day two. Mike Lee, please welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Menus of Change. How are you? Good morning, Menus of Change. How are you? Good? All right, good. Just making sure you're awake. It's really great to be back here this morning to kick you off for day two. We're going to be talking about the restaurant of the future, specifically around business models of the future. From yesterday and last night, I really got to chat with many of you, and I just really got the sense of we all really want to be here. Like, I don't think anybody gets into food and stays in food on accident, right? It's a hard industry. Margins are thin, labor, law, ingredients, inflation, supply chains, and then, oh, by the way, be sustainable, right? It's a lot of things to worry about. But I really get a sense of the passion that everybody has here that say, like, no, we're purposefully here because we want to be here, right? And I think that kind of attitude and resilience and passion is exactly what we need to take us into the future. Sometimes talking about the future, it's good to start in the past, in this case, the recent past. We had our business model really tested, right, in the COVID era. And so many kind of maybe small hairline fractures turned into bigger fractures, right? And we saw a lot of what maybe we should keep in the business model and maybe things we should change in the business model in the future, right? But I think, this kind of post-COVID world, we still have fresh in our minds the memories of maybe how hard it was to, manage a corporate cafeteria where no one was coming into the office anymore, manage a restaurant where you had to serve people outdoors in suboptimal conditions, so on and so forth. I don't need to retell that gloriously upbeat story to you guys again. But I'd make a case that the work that we're doing is worth it, because restaurants do more than just nourish people. They treat the human condition. They make connections. They bring people together. Because I grew up in a restaurant family, growing up since I was a child, since I was a baby, until maybe about 24 years of age, my whole family worked in the restaurant, grandparents included. So if we had to celebrate grandma's birthday, you know how chef's hours are. The only time we'd be able to celebrate it was Saturdays at like 11 p.m. when the restaurant closed. And so as a child, I'm a night owl by far, and me and my brother are because of this. We would routinely go out to eat at 11 p.m. in the evening on a Saturday, and like 40 of us would go to one of the handful of Chinese restaurants in suburban Detroit that opened later for the restaurant industry, and we'd have like a 13-course meal, and I'd get home at like 2 in the morning. I did that 6 times a year, every year since I was a baby, right? And some of the memories I had of like even, just the din of silverware and the lazy Susan spinning and having all your family there running around with your cousins and the kids. Sometimes I'd, smash 2 chairs together and just take a nap, because I was 5, right? And I didn't sleep very long, but gosh, those little naps were some of the best sleep I ever had. Like the sound of family and food and community was just like a warm blanket, right? And those are really just etched into my head of what it means to be in the restaurant industry, right? And so I think that's a vision worth fighting for, despite the hard business model, despite the slim margins, right? It's worth it. It's more than just what's on the balance sheet, what we do on food. I think food, the business model has to be 4 Ps. These are not the 4 marketing Ps you might have learned in business school. These are people, planet, palate, profit. We got this far in the world addressing maybe 1 or 2 of these at the same time. 2 of these would be great, right? I think it's a necessary condition for the future of our industry and society to do all 4 at the same time going forward. People, of course, the people you're serving and the communities you're in, but also the people who work in your kitchens, in your offices, take out the garbage, dishwashers, servers, chefs, cooks. We need to be better kind of citizens around all of us, right? and kind of turn the kitchen into a place where teamwork, collaboration, positivity, building off of each other is the norm, right? Planet, the planet Earth, everything around us, right? How do we kind of have food that can meet the ambitious goals we have around climate and sustainability while still serving the people and making them feel good about it? Palate. None of this works if the food doesn't taste good, right? And I think that, unfortunately, in the world, people don't always follow values. They always follow flavor. There's lots of junk food out there that sells billions of dollars a year that has no real redeemable value when it comes to sustainability or health, yet because they're just pure flavor, they still make a lot of money, right? And so I think we gotta figure out how do we worlds on the back of flavor, not in spite of it. And then profit. I don't think anyone got into the restaurant industry to become Elon Musk, right? But we need to have profit, otherwise the first three P's don't make sense. They don't sustain. So we also need to do this in a way that runs a healthy, sustainable business as well, too. So I think these are the four P's for the future of food. One of the reasons why I love working in food is, we're not trading barrels of oil. We're not trading nuts and bolts and things like that. We are dealing in food, and because we deal in food, we are at the confluence of logic and emotion. Not one or the other, both. And I think to succeed in food, you have to be firing on both of these cylinders at once. Here's an experiment. Raise your hand if, when you go to the supermarket, you're typically one of those people that looks at labels and nutrition facts and things like that. Who does that? Okay, yeah. Second question. Raise your hand again if last night at dinner you asked your server what the nutrition facts are from your menu item. That's emotion, right? Why is it that we're so logical in one spot? I'm not talking about two different people. I'm talking about the same person scrutinizing a label standing there at the grocery store, but yet when you're in the romance of a restaurant, the atmosphere, your second glass of wine has just hit you, and you're like, I'm sure those mashed potatoes are fine. That's emotion happening, right? And I think we can be maybe by it sometimes because, I think it takes a lot of logic to be in the restaurant business and to run a supply chain and run a kitchen and things like that. But all of that best laid logic can fall flat because somebody maybe just doesn't like strawberries. So we have to lean into the messiness of how human this job is and know that the customer might like or not like something that we put out there. We spent all this logical time building for completely irrational reasons. Ice cream has no logical reason to exist, but it does, and it's awesome, right? Raise your hand again if you've ever had a really, really great meal, and after you've had that meal, you've went back in your chair in a state of bliss and said, oh my God, that was so sustainable. If we aren't doing that, how is everyone else supposed to do that? That's the thing I want you to hold with you, right? The kitchen is where values and logic turn into emotion. We heard all about all the wonderful things in Blue Foods yesterday. And I get it because I love Blue Foods and I eat it. But imagine trying to sell Blue Foods to someone who has no idea what Blue Foods are. Of course, there's so many logical reasons you can throw at them, right? That many of we heard so well yesterday. There's so much logic between why you should eat more mussels and bivalves and all this kind of stuff. But if you can't transform that logical ingredient that comes into your kitchen into an emotional thing that makes action, it's almost like the logic didn't even exist, right? And so that's why the kitchen is so important. Because at the end of the day, we vote with our hearts and we vote with our heads, and 9 times out of 10, our hearts win. I don't really have data to support this because it's kind of ridiculous. I used to show a slide of these top 5 attributes in Europe and America of why people choose food. And it's one of those things where I was like, why did we even do this study? It's like, okay, hey, people buy on taste. Really? Holy cow. And then they buy on price. Oh my gosh, this is insane, right? So we know this, we feel this, right? And so we have to lean into the humanity. You might not have a P&L to support this, but like, look at the people you work with and say, come on, really? Do we really feel this in our bones is going to work? I think one framework that I want to provide to you and offer you and set this in your head for the day is this framework going forward of sustainable hedonism. For so long, I think, and I think now still it happens, when you say sustainability to somebody who maybe doesn't work in food or sustainability, I think that the initial thing that they think is like, okay, how bad is this going to taste, right? Or what do I have to sacrifice for it? Or, oh boy, that's going to cost an arm and a leg for me, right? There's this kind of lingering thing in the ether that I want to get rid of around sustainability that people don't wince when they first hear about it as like, ugh, I got to do a thing, I got to hear this server give me a lecture about stuff, blah, 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 right? And it's not to discount that. I don't think people do that because like they say, oh, I want to let the planet burn. I think this is just a normal reaction because if you've ever been hangry, are you really trying to solve climate right then and there? It's like, no, I need the thing in my mouth right now, you know? And so I think we're all kind of hardwired at some level to do this. I'll share with you an anecdote that I like to talk about a lot that's so instructive about one of the ways of what illustrates what sustainable hedonism can mean. I love eating sushi. And like my favorite way to eat sushi, if I can, at a place is the omakase way, right? Because in theory, the sushi chef has a good relationship with the fishmongers and knows what's in season, knows what's good, knows what's maybe overfished and what's not overfished. And the chef kind of meticulously gives you piece by piece this little curated little jewels from the sea, right? And I love that idea because it's so hedonistic. It's pleasure. It's like, oh, wow, another bite of something amazing, right? But implicitly, it's kind of following the patterns of nature if you've got a sushi chef that has that kind of skill. So one night in New York City, a long time ago, I was there eating my kind of omakase thing, and then a person sits next to me and orders a whole plate of like 18 pieces of fatty tuna. And it dawned on me that we in America, and I think we're all guilty of this, we tend to like to find one thing and eat the hell out of it. Do you remember when kale just appeared and we all were eating kale? Like, I had a debate, literally, way back in the kale days. It was called, like, I did a stage debate. It was called, who's kale's PR agent, right? But I think that I get it why it happens, right? Nutrition is hard for a lot of people that don't work in the industry. And I'm almost not even speaking to you guys. I'm speaking to the people that don't know this conference exists or don't even know the CIA exists, right? For that kind of person, it's hard and confusing to navigate all of these things. Like, oh, seed oils, I don't know, question mark. Am I going to read a white paper? Probably not. Better safe than sorry. I'll just cut it out, right? Or if I tell you, like, hey, eat kale, it's really good for you, it's much easier to just say, I'm just going to do this one thing and just hit it hard, right? Look at now, we have a protein shortage. Who thought we'd have a whey protein shortage? That's wild, because we found one thing, forget all the other nutrients, protein. Let's hit it hard. And so we need to kind of get this out of the system some way, lectury way, not in a, oh, you're bad because you're just eating kale, or you're bad because you're eating 12 pieces of fatty tuna. I think biodiversity is important for the ecological reasons that I think were really well covered yesterday, and I don't need to preach to the choir about why biodiversity is good for nature. What I propose to you is that biodiversity is good for hedonism. Biodiversity is that assortment platter of omakase sushi instead of just eating a monoculture. Biodiversity is being a foodie. Biodiversity is trying different things and different spices and not literally putting all your eggs in one basket. And I think if we can get the world to eat a more biodiverse diet, it could be a framework for not only better ecological outcomes, but better just happiness and pleasure. And that's important because, again, I think I'm preaching to the choir in here, but I think about the people that don't even know this conference or conversation is happening. How do we get them along? How do we get the whole bell curve of society to participate and eat in a more sustainable way? Because as much as I love the climate warriors and the Patagonia vest-wearing people, climate change and things like that, it's too big of a problem for only that segment of people to be working on. We have to find a way that every single human being can contribute in some way. And unless we have a magic wand that somebody knows about how we just make everyone in the world just altruistic intrinsically, I think in the meantime we need to build the argument of sustainability on the back of flavor and desire. We need to talk more sensually about sustainability and get out of this mindset that it's a sacrifice or it's a thing that I got to do a solid for the planet. This is one of the things we dove into in the book, in 4 Kitchens. You know, I wrote this menu for the fictitious restaurant Drift. I didn't know what anyone yesterday was going to say, actually, but it ended up that this is a perfect encapsulation of like a Blue Foods menu, I think, right? And I wrote this menu and I was pissed because this restaurant doesn't exist. I was like, oh man, I want to go to this really bad, right? But you know, like we very purposefully, like working with Abby and Mary and Robert, we purposefully designed this Drift restaurant to not look like an Erewhon or anything like that. We're like, it's got to look like a bistro, like a dive bar even, right? Or like a little crab shack on the side of the road that you would see. And you know, those are the beer cheese mussels. This is the fried kelp cracklins. This ad in the middle is for silverfin, which is silver carp, just kind of got a glow up, right? And a campaign behind it, trying to get people to eat invasivores. But and you'll notice that like there's no stats on this because people don't eat stats, they eat food. It's just desire. But if you get people to eat this menu through desire, they may not even have to know how sustainable it is. And maybe for some people, that might be a benefit. It might get them to eat it more. Today and in the historically, we've kind of marketed food in this vibe of like saying, hey, our thing is delicious. And by the way, it's also sustainable, right? It's delicious and also sustainable. That's kind of the mode that got us to here. I think the future of food is getting away from this and getting to this. This thing is delicious because it's sustainable. What if we rewired how we farm, how we supply, how we serve food, and we built up a meme in the society that said, I want that tasty thing. Why is it tasty? Because it was grown sustainably and regeneratively in rich soil, in fertile oceans. It's biodiverse, right? I think we need to start thinking about how do we make sustainability regeneration the source of pleasure, not making it in spite of pleasure. Thank you, and I hope you have a great day today.